Okay, good morning once again to everyone. Like Jerome introduced, I am Sonam Wangdi, and I'm very privileged to be delivering this keynote presentation to uh, uh, a wide group of participants from all around. And it's a great opportunity for me to share what we are doing here in Bhutan. Like Jerome mentioned, my presentation is titled Environmental Conservation and Net Zero Efforts in Bhutan. So what are we doing, and where do we stand in terms of our carbon emission and in terms of the conservation efforts that we undertake here in Bhutan? As you all know, conservation in any parts of the world, conservation is not a new concept that has begun. And here in Bhutan, I would like to say, Bhutan, majority of Bhutanese are Buddhist. But even before Buddhism was introduced way back in the 6th century, Bhutanese used to follow a religion called the Bon religion, which is basically worshiping nature and elements of nature. So as you can see in the picture here, you see the highest mountain in Bhutan, and this is claimed to be the highest unclimbed mountain in the world, measuring 7,700 meters above sea level. Things like this, the elements of nature like this, and down below you see a lake, one of the most beautiful lakes here in Bhutan. These are all worshipped as the abode of deities, where the local people worship these elements, and then even after the Buddhism has come in, we still do have elements of Bonism still with us, and then we continue to worship nature. And because of this fact of worshiping nature, we have, I would say, the pristine environment that has brought Bhutan into the 21st century, along with the pristine nature, is purely because of such elements of Bonism that we have in among majority of the population, which still continues to worship nature. And because of the very fact that this mountain remains unclimbed and is claimed to be the world's highest unclimbed mountain, is purely because of this, because it is worshipped as a abode of a deity, and the locals there, they will never allow people to climb onto this, because they believe that it is a sacred place. And then even lakes like this are considered as the abode of local deities, and then people would never pollute this lake, or even some season of the year, this lake remains out of bound for visitors, because of the fact that they want to keep this lake and such mountains sacred. And because of this, I would say that the nature, because of the worship towards nature, our environment still remains pristine. And with the coming of Buddhism, which basically taught people to be compassionate towards any sentient beings, any life forms, and we still do respect any kind of life forms, and because of such worship, or because of such reverence towards nature, I would say that this has played a major role in terms of shaping the environmental conservation efforts in Bhutan. And moving forward, I would say we have the visionary leaders and the political will. The visionary leaders, when I say visionary leaders, it is purely because of our the generations of monarchs that we had, because of their vision and because of their efforts towards environment conservation. I would say Bhutan stands where we are today in terms of environmental conservation. It's purely because of the vision our kings have set for us in terms of the environmental conservation, how we should see Bhutan years down the line. In terms of the environmental policies and legislation, I would say as early as 1960s, in fact, in 1969, we enacted the first modern legislation. The Forest Act of Bhutan, 1969, was the first modern document, I would say, in terms of the government efforts towards enacting an act. And in this act, the critical component of this act is where it says the minimum of 60% forest cover needs to be ensured for all times to come. And this act further paved way for creation of forest reserves. And moving forward, 1974, our forest policy, this brought in a paradigm shift towards how we looked at forest. Prior to 1974 forest policy, our forest used to be managed by the local stewards. I mean, there was no legislation as such that covered the whole of the forest. And then 1974, the forest policy, it basically nationalized the whole of the forest in Bhutan. And then this brought in a guided vision for the forest and environment conservation. And this basically the policy basically talked about the forest conservation, the importance of forest conservation, and also the afforestation efforts that we need to continue. And the most important thing is the creation of wildlife sanctuaries. This policy has given or directed the government towards. And the interesting the philosophy, the concept of gross national happiness, I believe most of you must have heard the concept of gross national happiness, which was promulgated by our fourth king way back in the 1970s, which said gross national happiness in terms of achieving happiness for our people is more important than achieving the gross domestic product, the economic development over the happiness of the people. So the gross national happiness, the policy or the philosophy revolves around 4 pillars, which is the sustainable development, preservation and promotion of culture, conservation of environment, and good governance. So here, why I would like to make a mention of gross national happiness, the policy. This basically shaped close to 50 years, Bhutan has been guided by this visionary policy, saying that we shouldn't be going purely into economic development. We should also be considering the environmental conservation in terms of the, we should also be considering the promotion of culture, preservation and promotion of culture, environment conservation, and good governance, basically trying to bring in societal happiness over economic development. So happiness is more important than money, I would say, over gross domestic product. And moving on to 1970s, it created 1980s, we saw the creation of various wildlife reserves. All these wildlife reserves further saw the consolidation of this wildlife in reserves into national parks. And then the creation of wildlife circles, the Northern Wildlife Circle and the Southern Wildlife Circle, basically to manage this national parks and the wildlife reserves. Moving on, 1993, we saw the revision of the protected area system into the current system of protected areas. And this is basically to go with the international standard of or the international classification of protected areas in terms of bringing in national parks, wildlife sanctuaries, strict nature reserves. So basically to align our efforts with the international efforts, that is the IUCN conservation standards. So the year 1993 saw the revision of the past efforts of the protected areas into the current system of protected areas. So 1999, this, in fact, is one of the most important milestone in the conservation efforts that Bhutan has. In 1999, because of the fact that we in 1993 we classified the protected areas into national parks and wildlife sanctuaries. This saw islands, the protected areas remaining as island protected areas, basically the conservation efforts being made into the separated spaces, the spatial spaces on the map. So in 1999, recognizing the importance of interconnectivity between this protected area system, the declaration of the biological corridor, and this was gifted as a gift to the earth from the people of Bhutan. And because of such efforts that we made in 2005, the UNEP recognized or awarded, recognized our efforts towards conservation and awarded Bhutan the UNEP Champions of the Earth Award. And in 2006, the WWF, further recognizing our efforts, they awarded the J. Paul Getty Award for Conservation Leadership to His Majesty, the Fourth King, who has been the guiding or the vision, guiding vision for the conservation efforts in Bhutan. And in 2011, this further saw His Majesty Jigme Singye Wangchuk, the Fourth King, being inducted into the Kyoto Earth Hall of Fame. And in 2022, between this also, we had received so many awards, but the notable awards that the latest award that Bhutan received was the Blue Planet Award from the Asahi Glass Foundation. In 2007, the important milestone that Bhutan saw was the enactment of the National Environment Protection Act, which is the umbrella legislation for environment protection and conservation. So this is the guiding act that guides any kind of protection or conservation that happens in Bhutan. So in 2008, further saw, this was the 100 years of monarchy. So as a tribute to our monarchs for what they have done towards environment conservation, we declared the largest national park, the Wangchuk Centennial National Park, was declared in 2008. And in 2009, the most important milestone to the climate efforts that we make, Bhutan committed to remain carbon neutral for all times to come at the COP15 in Copenhagen. And 2016, we saw the drafting of the economic development policy, which is a policy that guides the economic development to pursue green growth. So any kind of economic development should be aligned to this economic development policy. And then this policy is the guiding document for economic development that happens in Bhutan. And it says that it should pursue green growth. And following this policy, there are numerous strategies that is being drafted and followed in terms of guiding economic development in Bhutan. In 2022, in 2020, we saw the climate change policy coming into space. Where it says our effort needs to focus on climate resilience and carbon neutral development. So these are some of the notable legislation and environment policies that Bhutan saw, and we continue to draft so that we stay relevant. Our efforts are always geared towards remaining carbon neutral. In fact, Bhutan is one of the two countries that is carbon negative at the moment, meaning what we emit is less than what we sequester. So the carbon emission at the moment stays at 3.8 million tons of carbon, whereas our sequestration capacity is 9.2 million tons. And that is purely from the forest and agriculture and other land use efforts that the sequestration happens from these sources. So at the moment, I would like to say that Bhutan at the moment has 71% of our country under forest cover. So this is the protected area system that we have at the moment. Bhutan is a small country, as you all know. Bhutan, it's just 38,394 square kilometer. But even being a small country, half of our nation is under the protected area system, and 71%, to be specific, to be precise, 51.4% of our 51.14% of our country is under the protected area system, and the yellow strips of land, these are all the biological corridors that connects the protected areas. So the national parks, so Jigme-Dorji National Park, Wangchuk Centennial National Park, Bumdiling Wildlife Sanctuary, and we have one strict nature reserve towards the west of Bhutan. And these are all interconnected by the biological corridors that I mentioned earlier, which was declared in 1999. And the forest cover at the moment, as I was saying, remains at 71%. And in order to ensure that our protected areas and the forest cover remains for all times to come, we have the overarching the policy, or the overarching document that says that 60% of our land should remain under forest cover, and this is reflected in the Constitution of the Kingdom of Bhutan. So the constitutional mandate says that 60% of forest cover needs to be under, 60% of our geographical land needs to be under forest cover for all times to come. Whereas at the moment, I would like to proudly say that we have 71% forest cover. So it exceeds the constitutional requirement. And we have a dedicated chapter in the Constitution. So Article 5 is dedicated towards environmental conservation. So I think very few countries around the world has environmental conservation as a dedicated article in any of the Constitution. So Article 5.1 says that every Bhutanese is a trustee of the kingdom's natural resources. Thereby, it says that it's the fundamental duty of every citizen to contribute to the protection of natural environment. And Article 5.3 says that a minimum of 60% of Bhutan's total land shall be maintained under forest cover for all times to come. So this being reflected in the Constitution ensures that Bhutan at no point of time in the future will be without forest cover, or forest cover will go below 60%. So this ensures that Bhutan will remain carbon neutral, or if possible, we will be carbon negative for all times to come because of the forest cover, the amount of sequestration that happens. So just to give you some visual representation of what what we have in the protected area system, the biodiverse protected area system, it starts from elephants and tigers in the south. Excuse me. Okay, and in the middle region, we have the red panda, the beautiful red panda, and the heron that you see here nested on the tree. This is the critically endangered white-bellied heron, and globally the population is around 60 individuals of this bird remains globally, and in Bhutan we have around 25 of them. And the beautiful Himalayan monal, the Ludlos Bhutan glory, and further moving up towards the alpine region. So Bhutan, the altitudinal range starts from around 100 meters above sea level, and it goes all the way to the alpine region to the highest of 7,700 meters. So we have starting from the Asian elephants in the south at the tropical forest level, and it goes all the way up to this alpine snows where we have snow leopards, the national animal, the takin, the national bird, the raven. Just to give you a visual treat, I would just like to go through rundown with few pictures. So this is the alpine region in the north. This is the temperate region in the central belt. And moving down, we have the cool broadleaf forest. And further down, we have the subtropical grasslands and the subtropical forest. This is in one of the national parks that lies at 120 meters above sea level. With all this presentation, I would like to say that not everything is beautiful here in Bhutan. So I would like to say Bhutan is at the crossroads moving forward. There is a fast-paced economic development while we would like to stay with the policy of gross national happiness, but economic development for our nation is also important. So there is a lot of land use change happening in the country. There is a lot of human-wildlife conflict because of our conservation efforts, and with a lot of protected areas and the communities we have living inside the protected areas. There's a lot of interaction, the negative interaction between wildlife and humans, giving rise to human-wildlife conflict, mostly to elephants in the south raiding crops, agriculture crops, and tigers in the middle central belt killing livestock of the farmers. And as everyone knows, Bhutan has a porous border towards the south, where we have India towards the south. So we don't have a strict international boundary security guards because of the friendly relations where we share with our neighbors. So we have porous borders. So these porous borders give rise to illegal wildlife trade. Because of the urban centers, we do have a lot of solid waste in terms, a lot of water pollution that is happening, soil pollution, air pollution, because of the industries that are coming up. And because of the climate change, I would say that we are increasingly seeing a lot of invasive alien species. Till now, we have recorded around 46 species of invasive species, of which 8 are seen as a major invasive alien species invading our agricultural lands and also our natural habitats. Bhutan is at the moment is a less developed country, and we are very soon moving into the middle income country. But for the conservation efforts, we have been depending a lot on foreign aid, donor dependent efforts. But because of our graduation into the middle income country, we are seeing decreasing foreign aid, whereas on the ground we are seeing increasing cost of conservation. So how do we balance this? So, and climate change and its impact on conservation, as everyone knows, climate change is happening, and it's happening everywhere around the world. So whether it is your fault or not, climate change impacts you. So accordingly, it is also impacting our conservation efforts, our range. We are seeing range shift in terms of the flora and fauna conservation. So moving forward, I would say we are following sustainable development path. So like I was mentioning, we are increasingly seeing the triple planetary crisis happening here in Bhutan. So the climate change resulting into biodiversity loss, or the biodiversity loss giving rise to climate change. And we are also seeing increasing pollution in terms of solid waste, in terms of pollution to water sources. In terms of pollution, I would also like to say we do see chemical pollution. We do see nitrogen and phosphorus loading in terms of we are increasingly seeing our farmers using excessive use of fertilizers for commercial agriculture, and because of which we are seeing nitrogen and phosphorus loading on our land. And we are seeing increasing air pollution, whether it is transboundary or within the boundary of the nation. I would say we are increasingly seeing air pollution these days. And as I was mentioning, land conversion is another factor that is because of the economic development. We are increasingly seeing land conversion from forest land to other forms of land uses. And because of which we are seeing freshwater withdrawals. We have conducted a nationwide survey to map out our water recharge areas and spring sources, and we are increasingly seeing a lot of water sources that is drying up. And because of the COVID pandemic, I would say we have to everywhere around the world, we have seen a dip in the economic economy, and because of which there has to be efforts towards economic recovery. So how do we balance conservation with development? That is a critical part we need to tread on. So in terms of our this brings me to the second last of my slide. So the first nationally determined contributions to Bhutan's efforts towards remaining carbon negative or carbon neutral, or commitment towards net zero. So sustainable forest management and conservation biodiversity is the top efforts that we will continue to make, because we see forest, as I was mentioning, forest cover is very important, and forest cover is a critical factor in terms of the carbon sequestration that happens from the environment. So promotion of low carbon transport systems. So at the moment, we are increasingly seeing urban areas now promoting electric vehicles and then mass transport system. And in terms of waste management, we would like to see minimizing the greenhouse gas emission through application of zero waste concept. So recycling of waste, reusing, repurposing of waste, so that there is a minimal amount of greenhouse gas emission into the environment. So we would also like to see our economy promote green and self-reliant economy towards carbon neutral and sustainable development. We are now increasingly promoting clean and renewable energy generation. So nowadays we are increasingly seeing a lot of a lot of solar energy efforts going in. In terms of the agriculture and farming practices, we are trying to promote climate smart agriculture and farming practices. So we have protocols in place, we have assessment being carried out, and what are the vulnerability of our farming community towards climate change, and then accordingly, how do we make our farmers climate resilient? So these are some of the efforts that we are making. In terms of the energy demand management, we are promoting energy efficient appliances, whether it is home appliances, whether it is the industrial appliances. We are promoting energy efficient appliances. So in terms of the construction industry, we are promoting integration of low emission strategies for both rural and urban settlements by promoting green designs, promoting green buildings. So in the second nationally determined contributions, so this is purely from the national communications that goes to the UNFCCC. So Bhutan's efforts, how we are. So we would like to reiterate from our first national NDC, moving on to the second NDC, which has been communicated to the UNFCCC through our third national communication. So sustainable forest management and conservation efforts, like I was mentioning in the first national NDC, we would like to reiterate, and we would like to re-emphasize on the importance of sustainable forest management and conservation of biodiversity. So in terms of the low emission development strategy, we have, even in terms of the food security, in terms of the agriculture practices, we have this strategy in place, which is focusing on low emission development. So in terms of the human settlement, as I was mentioning from the first NDC, even in the second NDC, we are trying to promote green designs and green buildings, so that there's minimal emission from the human settlements. So from industries also, we have strategies in place in order to have the minimal emission towards the environment. So surface transport also, we are trying to, we are promoting mass transport system. We are promoting EVs so that there's minimal emission from the transport system. So in terms of the waste management strategy, mostly from the urban centers, we see a lot of waste being generated. So we have this strategy in place, and we are moving towards effective management of waste so that there's minimal emission from the waste. So hydropower development also, we are seeing hydropower development as one of the key key areas where we can undertake sustainable hydropower development, and where there would be minimal emission from hydropower development. So like I was mentioning, alternative renewable energy is one key area where the whole nation is focusing on moving away from the polluting sources of energy towards renewable energy, which has the minimal emission towards environment. And this is one important roadmap that we have for the green hydrogen roadmap, basically using our hydropower as a source for hydrogen, and then this hydrogen will be exported as well as used within the country for transport system, for as a source of energy. So this is another policy, an important policy where we are focusing towards our commitment towards net zero, national energy efficiency and conservation policy. So this brings me to the end of my presentation, and I would like to end here. And this is the popular picture of the 6 elements of longevity. In our language, this is called Tsiring Namdruk. Tsiring means long life, and Namdruk means the 6 elements. So here you can see the 6 elements harmoniously coexisting so that it provides longevity for all the 6 elements. So the 6 elements are the birds, which basically represents the avian, the avian flora, the deer reflecting the wildlife, the human being reflecting the humans, the tree reflecting the natural ecosystem, the cliff and the glaciers and the water system reflecting the water and its dependence towards the glacier. So these elements, if it coexists or harmoniously, I believe that we will be in harmony with nature, and we will be moving towards future in harmony with nature, which is a very important step every one of us must commit, so that we will live in harmony with nature, and we will move into the future in harmony with nature only. And the DNA helix that you see here, while we also give importance to our cultural preservation, depicted here with this picture, I would also like to say that the importance of the science and technology that we have to keep in mind, or we have to embrace the emerging technology and science so that we move into the future with technology, but in harmony with nature. Thank you. Thank you all for listening. If you have any question, I'll take the questions from now. This is the end of my presentation. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sonam. The world has a lot of things to learn from Bhutan, especially with regard to net zero transitions, but also for maintaining that net zero status in the future. But we have a couple of questions in our chat. We could start with Emmy. Emmy, do you want to unmute yourself and direct your question, address your question directly to Mr. Sonam?
Thank you, Jerome. This is an honor to meet you, Mr. Sonam. I'm Amy from Indonesia. Since I was focused on youth in circa 11 or 12 years ago, and we are also focused on Asia Pacific youths, is there any significant youth-based organization role along the process of this green growth in Bhutan because it's very interesting for me. And seeing a very long story of the Bhutan's effort to show to the world that you got a lot of awards, I think this is a kind of good example to the world that we can follow. So please, I'm really curious, how could you manage the youth and they can perform to help and support your national platform too? Thank you so much.
Thank you, Amy. In terms of the youth engagement, I would say we are increasingly, till now, I would say our youth was seen as an opportunity or as a future, but not as a present opportunity. Now, I would say that our government is increasingly recognizing the importance of youth and how youth is seeing as an opportunity. So now we are increasingly seeing youth-based organizations. So at the national level, we have the youth, it's called the YDF, Youth Development Fund. So there is a fund which is under the patron of Her Majesty, one of the Queen Mothers. And this organization is playing a very important role in terms of whether it is environmental conservation or whether it is any kind of development agenda that we have. So, and this was the first youth-based organization, but now we are increasingly seeing youth being involved as citizen scientists, as at different platforms now. So I would say, yes, now Bhutan is, our government or our nation is increasingly looking upon our youth as an opportunity, not just as a future, but as a present opportunity. And I think it's very important that we should capitalize on our youth.
Thank you for the question, Emmy. Thank you for the answer, Mr. Sonam. We also have a question from AJ. AJ is raising his hand. Do you want to unmute yourself, AJ?
Hello, am I
Yes.
audible?
Yes, yes.
Hi, Sonam. Good morning. Thank you for your good presentation about the Bhutan. So I have one question that, as you mentioned that you have been, Bhutan have been going for the solar energy, generation of solar energy sources, right? So it is already known that Bhutan is also very rich in its hydro sources. So why Bhutan wanted to go for the solar energy? Is the generation cost is cheaper than the hydro energy sources, or you just wanted to have some concepts of energy mix? First question is that. And second question is that if you want to go for the solar energy resources, what is the tariff, feed-in tariff rate that is exist in the Bhutan? Because we have also similar cases in Nepal, right? So Nepal is also being rich in hydro resources. There are many people that have been advocating that we should use our resources for the development of hydro electricity energy. We have to we don't need to go for the solar energy resources because the panels, the batteries, or the components come from the foreign. So this makes the trade deficit by importing these components. So what is your opinion on this? Thank you.
Thank you, Hijit. Yes, I think it's very important to note that hydropower is one of the important or the major energy sources. Even for Bhutan, hydropower is the major source of energy. But developing a hydropower project, or the project itself is, I would say, is not that environment friendly. So during the development phase, or even during the operation and maintenance phase, I think hydropower is, I promote riverine ecosystem as one of the important ecosystem for any nation or for any ecosystem. So if we are to keep on building hydropower through building dams, I think it's not very good for our river system. Now our government is increasingly recognizing that yes, hydropower does generate a lot of power, a lot of energy, but we also need to explore other sources of renewable and alternative energy sources. So that's why we are going into solar. And I would say at the moment, it's not a major or a mega project, but we would like to go in terms of the scale. I would like to say that we would like to go in a huge scale if it is possible, because our studies have shown that Bhutan is located at that optimal altitude where the solar power generation is I mean, it would benefit more than the hydropower. So, like I was mentioning, hydropower will remain as one of the important sources of energy, but we would like to explore other sources, and then that's why we are going into wind, or we are also looking at solar. So, solar would come in the second after hydropower, and then wind. So, in terms of the energy mix, because the amount that we generate is not enough for the nation's need. We do export during the peak season, we export, but during the off season, we have to import. So that's why we would like to go into solar. And in terms of the tariff, at the moment, we are just beginning. So the prosumer concept has just come in. So the prosumer is basically the consumer produces the energy, and when they don't need it, they fit it into the grid. So in terms of the tariff and this thing, it's just coming in, and then it's just being rolled out. So our households, the private households are also looking into coming up with their own solar roofs and then selling their energy generation into the grid. That way, I think solar would be more environment friendly in terms of the production and other aspects of energy. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Sonam. But I just wanted to tell that because as you mentioned that mostly the domestic households are also being used with solar energy. They are using solar energy, but I think it is a rooftop solar. That is the grid connected solar, right? So there may not have the backup systems on their homes.
No.
Okay, in that case, it is a good, because if we import the more battery, then it will again make the environment polluted. Thank you, Sonam, for your nice answer. Thank you.
Thank you, AJ. We have a lot of questions coming, actually, Mr. Sonam. So, and we have 8 minutes left. So it's a very interesting topic. So let's go on. Let's ask Sangram. Sangram, you have a question?
Hello, Sonam.
Hi. Sangram, are you okay? Yes, please go ahead.
So we are from like the mountainous country, Bhutan and Nepal. So I want to know about the GLOF, glacial lake outburst. Can you please tell me in detail regarding GLOF?
Thank you, Sangram. In fact, Bhutan did face one GLOF event. GLOF for other participants is the glacial lake outburst flood. So when a glacial lake bursts, it gives it causes into a flood, leading damages downstream. So that's GLOF. So I'm pretty sure many may not be aware about GLOF. So we did have one incidence of GLOF way back in the early 90s, which was quite devastating for the river valleys. In terms of dealing with GLOF, I would say, other than the attempt or the efforts towards lowering the lakes that has the potential threat as GLOF, we don't have major efforts going in terms of mitigating the GLOF. So that is the only effort that is at the moment going on at the source. So at the lake source only, they are trying to lower the lakes by draining out water. So those are the efforts that is going on, and we pray and we sincerely hope that both Nepal and Bhutan will never face such Gulf events that would be devastating for the nation and for the communities living along the riverbanks. Thank you, Sangram.
Thanks for the question, Sangram. Leah, you have a question?
Yes, thank you for the presentation. You mentioned that some farmers using like more nitrogen fertilizers for agriculture. So I'm just wondering, do the people of Bhutan trust science, or do they want to be more industrialized, like they saying these are fake news, climate change not caused by humans and all?
No, our people are very, I would say, very naive in terms of believing. So they believe what the scientists say. So I wouldn't say that Bhutanese are not non-believer of climate change. We believe climate change, and we have faced a lot of incidences because of climate change. Sometimes late monsoon coming in, not letting the farmers plant. Sometimes monsoon going away late, or erratic rainfall patterns. That comes even during harvest season. We sometimes have heavy rains. So our people do believe that things are changing, and then it is mainly because of climate change. So in terms of the fertilizer use, as long as they are given the education about the impacts of fertilizers that can cause to biodiversity, to the river system, to the water sources, our farmers are cooperative in terms of minimizing the use of fertilizers. So, but they also need to grow their own crops, and they also need to protect their crops from pests. So they do use a little, but as long as there is alternative, there is healthy alternative or organic sources of fertilizers, they are very much willing to go for those sources. So here I would like to once again say that our people do believe. Thank you, Leah.
Thank you, Leah. And I think we can entertain one last question from Anne before we take a break. Anne?
Okay. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
First, thank you very much for your insightful presentation about Bhutan and its works on environmental conservation. Actually, I have 3 questions, but now it's down to 1. Okay, so I pick the most concern to me. So regarding the solar energy, I would like, I'm wondering whether there is any conflict between the promotion of solar energy and the power supply, the power companies in your country, because in Vietnam the government is trying to promote the installation of solar energy in residential or in industrial sector, and they encourage to sell back the surplus solar energy to the national grid, but somehow it's the national power supplier not really happy about that. So I'm wondering about and so far the government in Vietnam still doesn't have a particular policy or guidelines for this kind of feedback to the national grid. So I would like to it would be great if you can further elaborate the situation in Bhutan. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. In terms of answering your question, I would like to say that small is always beautiful. Bhutan is a small country, so whatever arrangements or whatever policies that our government brings in, our people are willing, as long as the policies are consulted and made. So if there has been a prior consultation and coming up with a policy, people do accept the policies openly and willingly. So that's why I would like to say here that small is beautiful, because you have small number of people. We are just 700,000 people that our government needs to convince. So it's easier to convince the people. And we have convinced the people in terms of the the prosumer concept that I was talking about, producer as well as consumer. So our households are producing the energy as well as consuming the energy. So that's the prosumer concept. So the prosumer concept is increasingly being applied, at least in the solar sector. And then the Department of the Renewable Energy, they are now encouraging our people to put rooftop solars and then produce their own energy. And if they have excess energy, sell it to the power companies. So we just have one power company. It's the Brook Green Power Corporation. And the one that deals with, it's also a government-owned corporation. So it's easy for us to at least negotiate the rate, negotiate the tariff. So there has not been a major hurdle in terms of coming up with such policies. And we are, we do have a policy in place now, and we are increasingly seeing, not at the household level, but at the organization level, our people are now increasingly putting rooftop solars on their office buildings. So at least at the office and other organization level, they are now putting rooftop solars and then generating their own energy and also selling the excess energy. So we do have a tariff in place. So that's not a major challenge here in Bhutan. Thank you. And Jerome, I think this is the last question, because
Yes,
I also need to go
Yes.
at another function.
I understand that you're busy, Mr. Sonam, but thank
Yeah.
you very much for your keynote speech today. We really appreciate it. If there's another chance for you to be a guest in any of our events, we'd love to have you again. Thank you very much, Mr.
Thank
Sonam.
you. Thank you, Jerome, and thank you, Jury. In terms of my response, once again, I would like to apologize to at least to Jerome and Jury, because I have not been able to respond to your emails. My life has been a bit busy these days. So with this, I would like to thank all the participants and wish you all the best. You are the future. You are the future of the world, and the future is in your hand. So how you shape the future is in your hand. So I wish all of you to put conscious effort, to put meaningful effort in terms of shaping the future. So I have two sons who are very young, and you will be shaping their futures. My son's future, at least, I would say, in terms of the global perspective. So you guys are the future, and I would like to once again wish you all the best, and then wish you pleasant meeting. I think you guys are meeting for the next 5 days, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Next 5 days, a productive and a fruitful discussion, and then a learning process where it will make meaning in your life, and then you will be able to bring out meaning to the world.